years ago, Vox Women partnered with the Rouleur Classic to launch a joint award ceremony to celebrate the very best of women's cycling and to commend the incredible riders who animate that racing. In 2016, Megan Garnier of America and Bowles Dolmans, recently retired of course, she won our first ever Voxy Award after taking wins at the Giro Rosa and the Tour of California. And of course, therefore becoming the first ever Women's World Tour champion as well. In 2017, it was the turn of Annemiek van Vleuten to triumph after winning La Course and the World Time Trial title as well. This year, the award has that little bit more meaning. Last December, cycling lost one of its great British talents. Sharon Laws, aged just 43, passed away after a 14-month battle with cervical cancer. She was an Olympian, a national champion on the road, on the mountain bike, and in the time trial. She won the Queen of the Mountains jersey at the Women's Tour, and also a World Championship bronze medal in the team time trial as well. Sharon was also a valued and highly respected team member for Vox Women, and with her mother, Joy's agreement, we have renamed the Voxy Award the Vox Women Sharon Laws Road Rider of the Year in her memory. Now, I'm sure you'll all agree, for those who've managed to catch some women's cycling, we have seen some stunning racing from a highly competitive peloton. We've had 2 earlier rounds of public voting as well, both the spring and the summer votes, producing a shortlist of 4 riders put forward to one final public vote. And those riders are Coryn Rivera, Annemiek van Vleuten, Anna van der Breggen, and Amanda Spratt. Let's take a look now at these incomparable women in action. It has been a pretty amazing year if you follow women's cycling, or indeed if you're just a cycling fan. So from those 4, we had one final vote to determine our winner back at the start of October, and I'm very glad now to say our winner is here in person. I will be doing a Q&A with her in just a few moments' time. Ladies and gentlemen, the winner of the first Vox Women Sharon Laws Road Rider of the Year award is Coryn Rivera. Before I welcome her, let's take a look at her in action. And here she is, ladies and gents, give it up, Coryn Rivera. And this is what you get, which is an amazing photo of you. We'll turn it around for the audience as well.
That's a good shot.
A pure champagne shot on the podium of the Women's Tour. One more time, give it up, Coryn Rivera.
Thank you.
Take a seat, we'll have a natter. Okay, firstly, I think it's worth pointing out that Coryn landed here in London about 6 hours ago, wasn't it? How was your trip over?
Yeah, it was pretty short, not so bad. I came from Indianapolis, so not directly from California, so shorter than it would have been. Yeah, and apologize in advance if I'm a little bit sluggish, but I'm really powering through this just for you guys.
Yeah, she had a beer backstage, by the way, so very much getting on keel with London time. I have to apologize for the fact that it's raining, living up to the stereotype that it always rains here.
Well, I kind of expected it, you know, going into London, of course. But I was lucky this summer with the Ride London Classic was sunny and warm, and so I think having the rain now is a balance. So.
And let's talk about your season as a whole. What does winning this award here mean to you? It's a public vote, it's a public accolade. The fans have voted you into this position right here.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible and kind of feels like I won a Grammy too, so everyone's dressed nice and lots of spotlights, but it's special because it's in honor of Sharon, and Sharon was my teammate in the past when I raced for UHC, so I know her personally. And then, to get to that, Final Four was all thanks to my team and my teammates and the races we did and all the effort and work we put in. So I wouldn't be here without them. And then on the other hand, it's really a cool award because it's actually not about me. I think it's actually about you guys. And, the votes that you guys put in, even if it wasn't for me, I mean, it's clear that women's cycling is on an upswing. And, your votes were tremendous, and I really appreciate it, and I thank you all for voting, whether it was for me or the others even, honestly. I think it's really cool and really special.
Because in previous years, we've actually had an expert panel of industry folk and media types to award the final prize, but what we wanted to do this year was get the public and the fans engaged. They're more engaged than they've ever been before, and we wanted to reflect that in the voting. So it is down to pure public voting that you're sitting here now. Let's take a look at the spring, because last season, for those who may not know, Coryn became the first American, man or woman, to win the Tour of Flanders. So let's compare that spring to this spring, because you came in hot, you came in on it, and it didn't play out how you hoped.
Yeah, this spring, of course, the expectations were high. Last season, I had an amazing year, amazing spring. A lot of people didn't expect it, and I might not have even expected it myself. So to match that or exceed that was going to be pretty difficult. And so I came into the season really motivated and maybe a little bit too hot, and also coming from California and a very cold spring this year also didn't, play into my favor. So I had to work through that, and it wasn't the same kind of spring, but at the end of the day, I still gave 100%, and I think I've learned that that's what actually matters most.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a distant memory now, considering the ridiculous summer we've just had, but if you look back to that spring, the first race was the first weekend of March, and it had just snowed for about 2 weeks solid. It was bitterly cold, and on that day in Italy, it just about nudged above 1 degree, so the snow had melted, it had become slush. It's very much a dirt road, gravel road race anyway, and it was so tough on the body, wasn't it? That was a DNF for you that day.
Yeah, Strade Bianche was a really hard day for me. It was snowing the day before, and it had melted just before the race started, and it was raining the whole day and freezing cold, and constantly had to change clothing and couldn't feel my hands, and I figured I better call it since it's a pretty long spring and I didn't want to push too hard. But in the end, I actually did end up pushing too hard and kind of had to pay the price for the rest of the spring, kind of pretty much racing it ill. So.
And we'll talk about Flanders, because you came into that race with the coveted #1 on your back. That was a lot of pressure coming into that, knowing that defending champion, it was yours to win again. How did you cope with that pressure, and I guess deal with the disappointment afterwards as well?
Yeah, at that point we had to be realistic, and I wasn't really in the same shape as I was last year, so we kind of have to adjust the situation and the game plan. And
I remember interviewing you before, and you gave me nothing. You gave me absolutely nothing. I was like, gosh, she's remaining really tight-lipped. But I figure now it's because you knew that you weren't there.
Yeah, I wasn't the leader for that race, and Ellen was really in top form at that point of the year. So we went all in for Ellen, and she had a really good shot, and she, tried to follow Anna van der Breggen's attack when she got away, and that was the race. So we gave our best, and that was the best card that we could play on the day, and we played it.
So spring comes to an end, and you don't have the run of results that you had last year. Where's your head at that point?
Yeah, it was just about restarting and knowing it was a long year, new races ahead, new opportunities, start fresh, and just rebuild and get ready to keep putting the work down.
And then we move into Tour of California, and that a race I know means so much to you. It's on home soil, your family are there, you've got home fans there, and you've got, 2 stages that you could have won. Does the pressure creep back up at that point?
Yeah, of course. I mean, naturally, it's a hometown race. It's the only World Tour race in the USA, so it's kind of a big deal. And it's a little bit different from last year because Tour of California was a bit earlier in the calendar, so I was able to ride out my form from the spring and continue on straight into Tour of California. Whereas this year, there was a bit more time in between the spring block and the race. So I ended up taking a break after the spring and get healthy again and start training. So I didn't have as much race fitness as I did last year. So yeah, I wasn't really on top form at California either, and just kind of used it to build into the summer. But of course, I still wanted to do well on home soil, and I gave it my best. And with one less stage than last year, was also less opportunities for that. So yeah, I still gave it my best, and I think Ruth did a great job on the mountain stage, and so did Juliet as well.
Yeah, it was a brilliant race. Okay, and then that's where your season very much turned around. Let's talk about the women's tour, a 5-day stage race here in the UK, and really the pinnacle for a lot of the riders in terms of the professionalism of the race, the organization of the race, the fan engagement. Is that something reflected within the peloton?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it's probably one of the most prestigious stage races in the Women's World Tour. And it was really an honor. It was my second time racing it, and the first time I had raced it, I crashed out on the first stage and broke my wrist, and then raced the next day, and then realized my wrist was broken, and I had to pull out of the race, unfortunately. So it was good to come back and really go for it this time, and I know the race is really suited to me, so I gave it a good shot, and I was really well prepared and was really on top form going into the race, so I was really excited.
That's the point, actually. You say that race was suited to you. For many years, you were labelled as a sprinter, as just a sprinter, and then you won Flanders, which I think everyone in the room knows is certainly not a race you can win if you are a pure sprinter. And you gave me a really interesting answer to this quite recently. What do you make of those comments that, are you a sprinter, are you a climber? What would your reaction to that be?
Yeah, I mean, I always say that I'm just a bike racer, and what we do is we get to the line first, and that's what I feel like I do the best in, is I figure out my way to get there first, and with the help of my team and using our strengths and everything, that's what I see my job as, not as just a sprinter.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've very much silenced those critics, not just with that performance at Flanders, but then the women's tour itself. Yes, each day was a sprint finish, but you had to get over a few lumps and bumps. Talk us through the race, the team tactics, and how you managed to get into that OVO Energy green jersey and then keep it.
Yeah, the race is always super close and super tight, and that's what also makes it really fun to watch because it's really unpredictable. But really, we invested early into the intermediate sprints because the race really comes down to seconds. And so we went full lead out for these intermediate sprints and started ticking off time really early in the race. And the first stage, I ended up getting third, and so it was in the top 3, I think. And then in the second stage, we were still going for these intermediate sprints, and just had a really good opportunity to win the stage, and that's what put me into the jersey at that point.
Into that point, stage 2, and then it was a case of defending it in a race where anything can happen. How did the team do that?
Yeah, so at the start of the race, offense was the game plan, getting ahead on the intermediate sprints. And then once we got into the jersey, offense was also our defense as well. So we continued to do intermediate sprints and just stay in the top 5 in the finishes. And also, just keeping the peloton in control. And the girls were super strong. Like the entire week, we were never under pressure, never panicking. And I think I really owe it to them because it made the rest of the week, I don't want to say easy, but it could have been harder.
And what's the dynamic like within Team Summer? Whenever we see you guys from the outside, there's kind of an air of professionalism, of focus, but also that I'd imagine there's a lot of fun had on the team bus afterwards.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I can be a pretty goofy person, and I think I can pull it out of other people. But we definitely have fun in what we do, and I don't think we would be doing it if it wasn't fun for us. So I think that's the number one thing. And good day or bad day, we were able to laugh it off at the end of the day.
And how did it feel standing on the podium as winner of not just the women's tour, but a world tour race, a stage race, your first win of 2018?
Yeah, it was definitely new for me. I never really envisioned myself as a GC winner. And yeah, I owe it to all the girls and putting all their hard work into keeping that jersey, because I really couldn't have done it on my own. You know, Bulls was really giving us a run for our money, and so was Mariana and Danny Rowe. So it was kind of strange. It was still a win, and the stage win is like a really, you know, crazy feeling to put your arms up in the air. But then at the end of a GC win, you're like, you look back and you think, whoa, I really did that, you know, after 5 days. So it was a different feeling, and it was really cool, and, you know, breaking new grounds and continuing to challenge myself in the sport of cycling. So it was new, and I loved it, and I'll be ready to be back for more.
And that good form very much continued. Coming into the start of this year, Coryn had won 71 national titles, and you made it 72 in June. Tell us about the road race.
Yeah, so I have been second place at the Elite Road Race for the last 3 years. So I thought third time was a charm, but it clearly wasn't. And that was really crushing for me. But I kept working at it, and I kept learning from my mistakes and trying to do better. And luckily this year I had a teammate in Ruth Winder, and we had a really good game plan, and we had a great team behind us in the caravan car, you know, at a U.S. Nationals race. So we kind of had to organize that on our own. Yeah, and we finally pulled off a national champion win, and I went from being stuck at 71 for 2 or 3 years to going to 72, and being able to wear the stars and stripes throughout the whole year, which is really special. Yeah,
how do you feel putting that jersey on? Does it make those races a bit more special, knowing that you're representing the USA?
Absolutely. It's such an honorable feeling to zip that jersey up and have the stars and stripes on my back and representing the country, and with having the Sunweb logo as well, to be the national champion. Yeah, it's pretty incredible for me.
And we then come in towards the tail end of the season, so the Ladies' Tour of Norway, in which you endured the most ridiculous battle. If anyone's seen those sprints, we saw a couple of them in the video, against Marianne Vos, who is no small rider at all. She's one of the greatest riders, male or female. How was that battle with one of the greats?
Yeah, to be racing head-to-head with pretty much a legend was difficult for sure. And we had already gone head-to-head at the women's tour, and she was the one I beat when I won the stage 2 at the women's tour as well. So I think maybe it was a little bit of payback or evening out at the Tour of Norway, but we really pushed each other to the limit. And some of our intermediate sprints for time bonuses was even harder than the final sprint, because we were gunning for these seconds. And Tour of Norway is also a race that comes down to seconds as well. So it was a great fight, and I really enjoyed it. And you know, the whole team put a lot of work into it, and we came away with the best that we could have done, because Vos was really on form.
And let's talk about the World's Road Race now, because for those who may not have seen it, Coryn went on a pretty crazy break. How long were you out in front for?
Ooh, I think too long. At the top of the first time up the main climb in town in Innsbruck.
So out there for, perhaps too long in terms of the effort you had to make. And it was a race won by Anna van der Breggen, who soloed pretty much for the last 40K to victory. Did you feel that you were kind of one of the only riders who were trying to outsmart the Dutch, take it to them, rather than sitting back and waiting?
Yeah, I mean, that was the only thing I could have really done to help my team and put Team USA in a position to do well, is to get ahead, because once they attack and I'm behind, it's like, you know, it's going to be really difficult to chase back, and that course is, I think, really difficult to chase, because it's just climbing 7 minutes downhill and then through the towns. So there isn't much of an opportunity to chase them back. So I was trying to get ahead of it a bit, and you know, be represented as a team, and kind of be able to be in the front when my teammates came across, and to help the climbers. So yeah, I felt like that was the best thing I could have done, and I did that instead of waiting around and you know, letting Van der Breggen just attack me from the group.
And you told me the story of when you saw or you felt Anna van der Breggen coming up behind you. What happened?
Yeah, so I had been off the front for pretty much a full lap at this point, and I thought, oh, I am burning through the calories, and I really need to eat. And I was with, I think, 3 others, including Spratt, and I need to eat. So I started eating this bar, and then I looked back for a second, and I was like, oh no. I said, I see orange coming, I don't know who it is, so I'm just trying to chew as fast as I can while climbing, so I'm also breathing kind of hard. And then I look again, I said, oh no, it's Breggen. And then I'm trying to chew even faster, like, just drink a bit of water as well. And then she catches us, and I thought, I hope she just sits on and takes a breather for a little bit. And she didn't, she was relentless, and she was, the deserving winner of the race, and just immediately took off. And then my heart rate got higher, and I'm trying to breathe I shoved the bar to the side of my mouth, and that wasn't cutting it, so it was really difficult. So I spit the bar out, I ditch both my bottles, and I just go as light as I possibly can to try to stick on the wheel. And I think I stuck on until the last K of the climb. And then, yeah, they were just attacking each other at that point, trying to get away solo. So that was maybe an untimely bar chew.
Yeah, to say the least. But an amazing effort from you in that road race. Looking back, now we sit here in the off season, and you've had a beer backstage already, probably the first of a few tonight. Looking back on the season as a whole, what's the overriding emotion? Proud, satisfied? How are you feeling about it?
Oh yeah, I think I can really be happy and proud with my season. I mean, I got a championship, a national championship that I have been trying for the last 3-4 years now. For the first time ever, I've won a Women's World Tour stage race, which is something that I never thought I could have even done. And then also at Tour of Norway, I ended up getting second at another stage race. So I think I broke into new ground this year and really, put myself in a new place. And even though my spring wasn't as exceptional as it was last year, I did learn some good lessons from it and kind of applied it to the rest of my year. And I just stayed gritty the whole year and kept, working hard after it, and eventually turned that year around and made it a great year and finished it off in a really great note at World Championships. So I can be happy with it.
And as ever with women's cycling, we talk as much about the brilliant racing as we do the problems, the struggles, the challenges off the bike as well. We sit here now, minimum salaries just been introduced for 2020, team contracts and insurances are being put into place. Where do you see women's cycling sitting at the moment? How hopeful are you for the future?
Yeah, I'm super hopeful, and I think we're in a really great tipping point where we are moving forward, and I think we are gaining traction, and we need that exposure. And so I think the more we can get women's cycling out there and get people to understand that it is a cool thing to watch and follow, the rest will come about. So I think that's starting to gain traction, and we're moving in the right direction.
And your first time here at Rouleur Classic as well, what do you make of it?
It's very British. I love it. Super nice outside.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
No, it's great. I love it. I love London. I love being here. It's a pleasure to be here. And I just thank you all for coming out and voting. And it's a really great event here, and it's a beautiful night.
And finally, we've obviously renamed this award in memory of Sharon Laws, who was a friend and a colleague of mine, and I used to try and chase her up the hills back in the Cotswolds as well. I know you raced with Sharon, you rode with her. What are your memories of Sharon Laws?
Oh, I love Sharon. We raced together when we were both on UHC, and I remember she always had her little musette bag, and I always said that she had her bird seed in there. So she'd always put her bird seed in her breakfast or after dinner in her yogurt or something. And I also remember that she had just bought a new MacBook, and she was trying to figure out how the Mac worked compared to the PC. And I think I had only had a MacBook from when I had my first computer, so I was really showing her the ropes and helping her understand how to use a MacBook. But she was the most loving and understanding teammate I've had, and super cool and smart as well, and I miss her.
Yeah, we all miss her. Good to know she didn't change though, because on group rides with me, she would always have her pockets stuffed. I don't know what was in there. They were stuffed to the brim, and she used to sort of go around the Cotswolds and pick various things up from shops. And at one point, she came home with like a giant gnome to take home for her mum. And I don't know how she stuffed it down her jersey. I have no idea. But she somehow managed it. But it is an honor indeed to present this award in memory of Sharon. And I'm sure she'd be so proud that it went to a former teammate of hers as well. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for the first winner of the Volkswagen Sharon Laws Road Rider of the Year Award, Coryn Rivera. Thank you very much. Thanks so much for listening. Coming up next, Bianna Rees will talk you through how to create a winning team. Thank you.